The best thing about living in a time of a pandemic is that all of those terrible things that used to happen are actually still happening, in addition to the pandemic. Sure, school shootings are way down thanks to the fact that no one is in any schools waiting to get shot, but people are still dealing with issues like domestic violence or lack of access to safe abortions, both of which disproportionately affect women and have actually been possibly made worse by quarantine orders. Another shitty problem that disproportionately affects women that we're still dealing with during this whole pandemic: roadblocks preventing women from accessing birth control. You know, birth control, that thing that reduces the total number of abortions that women need. And you remember how the same people who don't want women to have abortions also don't want women to have access to the birth control that limits the number of abortions? Yeah, that's all still going on. This was all a very big deal back when Obama launched the Affordable Care Act, if you can remember back that far, because conservative Christians didn't want the women working for them to be able to get things like birth control pills. If you're not aware, birth control pills simply prevent women from ovulating, and when there is no egg moving around trying to get itself fertilized, it can't get fertilized, generally. Conservative Christians hate this because they hate women. Seriously, that's the only explanation that makes sense. They'll argue that they do not hate women because some of them know women and others are women, but there's literally no other reason to oppose this health intervention. Literally, no one thinks that unfertilized eggs are babies, precious human lives, or else menstruating once a month for like 40 years would be considered absolute genocide. The only reason to insist that women must get pregnant and then have a baby after having sex is because you don't want women to be anything other than broodmares who also cook and clean. There's no biblical reason to oppose birth control. Jesus never said that women had to be pregnant every month of their lives in order to reach the kingdom of heaven. It's all nonsense. But because the people who hate birth control also happen to believe in a God, it's considered a religious belief, and we have to have the Supreme Court weigh in on whether or not birth control is protected. Just like hating gay people so much you don't want them to marry each other, or female genital mutilation. Oh, wait, sorry, not that last one. That's another religious/cultural belief that is not the majority in this country. But man, can you imagine if it was? So yes, the Affordable Care Act mandated that businesses provide affordable, comprehensive healthcare to all of their employees. But some Christians argued that it was against their religion to provide comprehensive healthcare to women. So Obama agreed to let houses of worship and some other religious nonprofits discriminate against women. Oh, did you forget that Obama kind of sucked in a lot of ways because our current president is a racist version of one of those dancing tube men out in front of gas stations? Yeah, things still weren't necessarily going gangbusters back then for people with uteri. Anyway, that wasn't enough for the Christians. They demanded that Christians who owned for-profit businesses like Hobby Lobby should also be allowed to prevent their employees from accessing birth control. So they sued, and it went all the way to the Supreme Court, and the Supreme Court agreed with them that corporations can have religious beliefs, and that those corporations should be allowed to use their religious beliefs to discriminate against women. Because fuck women, am I right? In return, the corporations would just need to file a single form, and that form would allow women in their employ to get full health coverage via the government. But obviously, that wasn't enough for the Christians. So in 2016, the Little Sisters of the Poor, who operate housing for low-income seniors, brought a case all the way to the Supreme Court, arguing that filing a form also went against their religion. Yes, really. I was going to make a joke here about how, I guess, filing my taxes is against my religion, but then I remembered Churches don't have to pay taxes. Oh, Jesus Christ. Obviously, this isn't all about a form. It's about the all-encompassing need to control women's bodies in whatever way they can. But the Supreme Court deadlocked over that, and they punted the case back down to the lower courts. And so now, like a bad meatball, the case has come back up. In the years in between, Trump was elected, and the Little Sisters actually joined him when he signed an ordinance that basically said pretty much any employer can choose to stop their employees from accessing birth control. The Commonwealth of Pennsylvania objected to this, and so now the Supreme Court is listening to both cases from Pennsylvania and from the Little Sisters of the Poor. COVID-19 has been frustrating for a lot of reasons, but in part because it's hard for the general public to see and understand science being done by scientists in real time, leaving lay people confused and trying to read into stats and statements without the necessary context. The same is happening now with this case, but for lawyers. Thanks to the pandemic, the case is being tried via phone and the general public can listen in. And this is interesting from a legal nerd standpoint, but frustrating from the standpoint of, my God, can we please stop guessing what's happening in real time and let the experts work this out? The justices are now under a microscope, and every question they ask, every statement they make is being interpreted through a lens of what's going to happen. Are they going to side with the liberal or the conservative view? Because the idea that women are people who deserve health care is drawn along political lines. And dear God, is that frustrating. A panel of mostly men, including one who just last year was credibly accused of sexual assault. Was that last year? Was that 10 years ago? I'm not actually sure. That panel is going to decide whether women deserve basic health care. Healthcare that can keep them from experiencing unintended and potentially dangerous pregnancies, healthcare that regulates their menstrual cycle, healthcare that manages their endometriosis, healthcare that manages their skin problems, basic healthcare. It is inconceivable that we would ever consider allowing anyone to stop cis men from accessing that kind of basic healthcare, let alone put up with years of Supreme Court cases on the topic. What if Jehovah's Witnesses wanted to stop their employees from getting insurance coverage for blood transfusions? What if, as Delilah Brown mentioned to me over on Twitter, a Jewish business owner wanted to stop his employees from getting insurance coverage for heart valve replacements that came from pigs? Or what if a bunch of nuns truly was religiously committed to being anti-sex and not anti-woman and decided that insurance shouldn't cover Viagra for their employees? It simply would not happen because this is about controlling women's bodies. And that's been a recreational sport in the United States since its founding, since before its founding, let's be honest. It's time for the Supreme Court to get a fucking clue and admit that corporations cannot have religious beliefs and religious freedom ends where my personal freedom begins.